Cupertino, California. Apple today announced that Sir Jony Ive, Apple's chief design officer, will depart the company as an employee later this year to form an independent design company, which will count Apple among its primary clients. While he pursues personal projects, Ive and his new company will continue to work closely and on a range of products with Apple. Wow. Wow. On one hand, I'm devastated. As someone who started out in this business as a designer, Jony Ive and his relationship with Apple was just everything I looked up to, everything I aspired to be. On the other hand, though, as someone no longer in design, Jony Ive set free but still connected to Apple is something I really deeply feel. But, sorry. First, I wasn't going to do this video today. I was going to wait and think on it a bit and do a deeper, more forward-looking video tomorrow. But then, you guessed it, the internet happened. Hot takes began to rain down like meteors in a Michael Bay movie, and as expected, a lot of them were just as terrible. Like terrible set in Comic Sans terrible. That's why I ultimately decided to split my video in two, to get something short out now, today, and then focus on something deeper for tomorrow. So hit subscribe, rugby tackle that bell gizmo so you don't miss tomorrow's show, and then buckle up. I'm Rene Ritchie, and this is Vector. Jony is a singular figure in the design world, and his role in Apple's revival cannot be overstated. From 1998's groundbreaking iMac to the iPhone and the unprecedented ambition of Apple Park, where recently he has been putting so much of his energy and care. That's the statement from Tim Cook, Apple's CEO. Apple will continue to benefit from Jony's talents by working directly with him on exclusive projects, and through the ongoing work of the brilliant and passionate design team he has built. After so many years working closely together, I'm happy that our relationship continues to evolve, and I look forward to working with Jony long into the future. Okay, but so what does all this mean? First, Jony has literally been at Apple since the second coming of Steve Jobs. When it comes to personal computing, he's been there, designed that. He's won more awards and been on more patents than entire companies combined. He's a big part of the reason almost all phones are now singular slabs, why every laptop for a long time was as wedged as air, and why it was so hard for so long to tell any other tablet apart from the iPad. He was a design lead not just for Apple, but unofficially for the industry. But he's also a designer, a passionate, beyond talented designer who, outside of a few projects for Product Red, hasn't been able to design much of anything else in 2 decades. Not a set of chairs or a desk, not a bicycle or a personal jet plane, not a set of knives or a grandfather clock. He's designed the best-selling products in the history of best-selling products, but that's all he's been able to design. That is, aside from his recent flirtation with Apple Park and Apple Retail. Why would Jony Ive leave Apple only for this new design company, Lovefrom, to be hired by Apple again before it even officially launches sometime next year? Probably because it's a win-win for everyone involved. First, Apple's no stranger to working with outside design companies. Prior to the age of Ive, Frog Design helped make so many of Apple's early products so iconic. Apple's also worked with outside agencies in the past, with whom they've created some of the most memorable ads of all time. Jony is the reason they haven't been doing it since Jony, and now that they might start doing it again, either in name only or as a real deep collaboration, time will tell. It'll be with, you guessed it, Jony, and with Mark Newson, who's joining Jony at From Love after spending the last few years with him at Apple, not only shaping products in his own right, but as a kindred spirit in a way that no one else could be since the passing of Steve Jobs. Second, Jony not only knows everything Apple has done up until now, he knows everything the company is currently working on for the future as well. His team has been pushing out designs, not just for the next generation of products like glasses and automotives, but prototyping and brainstorming generations of products after that. Having some extra insurance wrapped up around that is in everyone's benefit, especially because, third, it preempts just a ton of silly speculative headlines around what if Google or Samsung or Huawei or whatever competitor hired Lovefrom and Jony. Fourth, it keeps Jony in the Apple family, even if he's moved out and gotten his own space, and that doesn't just cut down on the neighborhood drama, it keeps up the feels in the family. Design team leaders Evans Hankey, Vice President of Industrial Design, and Alan Dye, Vice President of Human Interface Design, will report to Jeff Williams, Apple's Chief Operating Officer. Both Dye and Hankey have played key leadership roles on Apple's design team for many years. Williams has led the development of Apple Watch since its inception and will spend more of his time working with the design team in their studio. Now, she's not very well known outside of Apple at all, but by every account I've heard so far, Evans is beyond solid. She's been effectively running industrial design for years, since almost after Jony left day-to-day management there to focus on Apple Park and Apple Retail, and she deserves a ton of credit for a lot of what the team has done over the last few years. And yeah, feel free to transform that credit into blame if you're super salty and spicy about things like the butterfly keyboard, but it takes a company and years to let that ship. And I can get into that in a follow-up video if you want me to, let me know in the comments, but it's probably fairer to judge her by the next keyboard than this one, just like the next AirPods and, next design generation of iPhones. Having her and Alan Dye, who's effectively been running HI since iOS 7, report into Jeff Williams is going to be a real head-scratcher for a lot of people. And it's a bold choice, but I'm not sure it's a bad one. Neither Evans nor Allen are being promoted at this point, and having them go back to reporting into Tim Cook, like Dye and Richard Howarth did when Jony was off working on Apple Park, would have felt to me more like Apple had no other idea what to really do with them. Jeff, by contrast, has been running Apple Health and Apple Watch for years, and not just the way Dan Riccio runs some special projects groups or Eddie Q runs Apple TV. Jeff is incredibly detail-oriented and has a real passion for design. Part of the reason Sabih Khan was promoted to Senior Vice President of Operations was so that Jeff could spend more time focusing on product, including and especially design. Also, Apple doesn't just mint Senior Vice Presidents, let alone C-level executives. Even two of the most important hires in the recent history of the company, Johnny Sarugi, who runs Silicon, and John Giannandrea, who runs Machine Learning, took some time to get their Senior Vice President power-ups. If Apple is considering anyone, internal or external, for Senior Vice President of Design, I wouldn't expect to hear about it until after some time passes and a big new product or version launches. After nearly 30 years on countless projects, I am most proud of the lasting work we have done to create a design team, process and culture at Apple that is without peer. Today it is stronger, more vibrant, and more talented than at any point in Apple's history. That's according to Jony Ive. The team will certainly thrive under the excellent leadership of Evans, Allen, and Jeff, who have been among my closest collaborators. I have the utmost confidence in my designer colleagues at Apple, who remain my closest friends, and I look forward to working with them for many years to come. There's an incredibly crucial point inside there. Apple is absolutely the sum of its people, from Steve Jobs to Jony Ive to Tim Cook to everybody else, but everyone will leave eventually. Everyone. For Apple to truly last, it has to have a soul beyond those people. The most important product everyone at Apple works on every day isn't the Apple Watch, it isn't the iPad, it isn't even the iPhone. It's Apple. It's making Apple into something that can not only survive, but thrive, even after any of them. Now, you're going to hear from some people that Jony checked out of Apple after Steve Jobs passed away, or shortly before he took on the very different challenges of Apple Park and Apple Retail. And for some people, even at Apple, both of those things are going to be true. For others though, for the ones still working with and presenting to Jony on a regular basis, it's going to sound beyond ridiculous. And that's because the internet, like people, just aren't good with multiple truths. We're not as simplistic, as catchy as headlines and hot takes make us want to imagine. And situations are seldom as extreme. We're complicated, we're contextual, and so are our passions and our relationships. Jony led the teams that designed everything at Apple, then the teams that designed the places to put all those teams and all those things. He has, I can only imagine, looked upon the breadth of his product portfolio and felt like he had no worlds left to conquer. Imagine how that must feel to one of the greatest industrial designers in history. And then imagine what doing something like Love From must feel with one of your best mates and a deal that lets you still create with Apple, but also create beyond Apple, create anything, whole new worlds, whole new challenges and potentials. Product red electric bikes, bead blasted aluminum hot tubs, Yo Siri, bubbles, whatever he wants, whatever he can dream up and will into production. And who knows, in a few years, maybe we'll see a documentary on CuriosityStream about his impact. I mean, they have one up on Frank Gehry after all, but also so much more. It's the world's first streaming service to address our lifelong quest to learn, to explore, to understand, and it's available on a wide range of platforms, including all of the ones designed by Jony Ive. Go to curiositystream.com/vector for unlimited access to the world's top documentaries and nonfiction series, and enter the promo code VECTOR to start your membership completely free for the first 30 days. Thanks, CuriosityStream, and thanks to all of you, always, for supporting the show. Okay, it's going to take a while for me to really process this. Not only what it'll mean for Apple going forward in a post-Jony Ive as Chief Creative Officer age, but what it will mean for Jony Ive and Love From, and what we'll see from both in the not-so-distant future, including, I hope, a lot of really interesting products in the not-so-distant future. So for now, I want to thank Jony Ive for everything he's contributed over the course of his career at Apple, one of the most impactful careers in the history of design and consumer products. And I want to wish both Apple's industrial design team and Jony and Love From the absolute best going forward. Design only exists in the moment of its successful application, and that's the only way to judge Apple and Jony Ive's work going forward, based on what they ship next. At least that's what I think. Now, I'd love to know what you think. So hit like if you do, subscribe if you haven't already, and then hit up the comments and let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next video.